I'm me, you're you, and this is Wiggly's Book Club, episode 008. Wiggly's Book Club is brought to you every 2 weeks as a part of the GiantMediaBall.com lineup. We are recording live from Sloppy Joe's Bar in the scenic West Ward of Easton, Pennsylvania. Without further ado, let's go to Wiggly in Sloppy Joe's Bar for a reading of the mid-1900s View-Master presentation of Little Black Sambo. All right. Okay. Hey. View-Master, one reel, 7 three-dimensional pictures, 7 wonders of the world. Special instructions. The pictures in this reel are made on full-color Kodachrome film, and reasonable care should be exercised in handling. Do not touch the pictures with fingers. Clean with soft cloth or camel's hair brush. Do not store in hot places. Keep reel in carton when not in use. Sawyer's Incorporated, Portland, Oregon, printed in USA. I don't think there's a date on this. On the book, just copyright Sawyer's. And the reel also does not have a copyright. Wait. There is one here. I think it's 1948, but unfortunately, I don't have my magnifying glass in here. Let's see if this ashtray works. I think it's just giving me a number. But I'm pretty sure this is 1948. I talked to some people about initially doing this, and I wanted to reading Little Black Sambo, and I wanted to. They advised me that they sort of scoffed at me or advised me against it or said why or other things like this. But most of them didn't, because they understand me and they understand my feelings on the mythogenetic race. And if you want to look more into that and, this hatred being baseless, not only baseless, but wrong, like baseless is already wrong. But this is purposefully and incredibly wrong. Like the opposite end of the spectrum is what hatred is based upon. And I'm going to get into why, how this was as a child. 1948, of course, I was not born until 66, but I definitely remember Little Black Sambo and reading about Little Black Sambo. In fact, on the back of a menu, little what do you call these paper placemats in a diner? And a diner was called Sambo's. And I used to love to go to Sambo's. But the reason I decided to do it, to read this, even though it is offensive, I believe it's offensive to humanity as a whole. But I also want to explain when it became offensive to me and other people I know, actually. And I'll get to do that because this is only a 7 three-dimensional pictures in full-color chromachrome. Now, I won't be Kodak. I won't be, of course, showing this because that doesn't make any sense. But if you didn't know, View-Masters came with a little booklet. So first I'll explain the backdrop of View-Master, what they were all about. And this is completely off the top of my head. I don't know. I'm not a View-Master expert. I just know that my mom worked at Kodak when I was young. Eastman Kodak, as I bring up many times. She worked for Eastman Kodak in just like a developing office, and they did other type of work, but they also sold film and things like this, but they had a rack, a spinning rack, much like you would see. Yeah, you wouldn't see comic book racks like this anymore. You used to have them at 7-Eleven and whatnot. Maybe some shops still have them. But anyway, they had a spinning rack, like you would see sunglasses on, maybe, except that you could stick shit in it. And one thing that you would stick in this, it was a View-Master, because it was a View-Master rack. And, it was great to push the gimmick around and look at all the reels and the packages there. Now, I did not have Talking View-Master, nor do I remember there being Talking View-Master there. But what you have to realize is I'm 3. I'm around 3. So my memory of everything is probably not that good. And the only thing the things that jump out at me were tons of scenic stuff. One of my favorite ones being about weird animals. Like I saw the sloth for the first time, and you see these in 3 dimensions. And I think View-Master is still relevant today. Now, some company bought it out, and I can't remember if it's Kenner or I believe it's probably Kenner. I could be mistaken, or Mattel even. And unfortunately, they painted it all like baby colors, and it comes packed in with planes or Wall-E or something, or Disney. So it's completely pandering to children, not a family fun event. And as soon as they started releasing View-Masters on these blister packs without the book, it lost all of its breadth. It lost its scope of what this could mean, as opposed to sitting down and playing a video game or what have you. Now we have 3D television and all this other, that, and the other, but it doesn't really matter. Like when you watched Bugs Bunny on the View-Masters, or many of the other animated characters, they would be done in this claymation type of look, this Rankin Bass type of style, doll movement things. And Little Black Sambo is no different. That's the style of artwork they do on here. So View-Master was very interesting. There's a lot more about it, but I'm at Sloppy Joe's, and I got to read. And what are we looking at here? 677 something 703. Thank you, 703. I'm gonna go with 6. I'm gonna go with 7. So I'm going to read Little Black Sambo, a little bit of backstory on Little Black Sambo. I don't think I did View-Master justice, but I'm moving on. So somebody you normally would have this booklet. Now, when I was a kid, there's actually 2 writers. Now, they didn't have to necessarily be 2 writers, because they might have been the same person, but you get like a little less than a tweet in characters that were on the View-Master disc. Maybe a tweet, I'm not sure. But when you stick the View-Master in the reel, of course you have duplicates of each of the 7 slides, so you have 14 slides. And the way a 3D camera works is you have 2 different vantage points, just like your eyeballs. So you have 2 cameras that are taking a single a picture at the same time of the same subject. Burp, by the way. And then you isolate your eyeballs into looking into this View-Master. That's all what it's called. And of course, this came out when they were just the solid black metal View-Masters with the wonderful metal woodgy on it, instead of like the plastic. You know what the hell you call them? Pushy slide, the slide advancer, I should say. So when they separate your eyeballs, each eyeball's looking at the one camera on the right or the left, and then you see a 3-dimensional image because they're they're different, and that's how you triangulate with your eyeballs. So if you only have one eye, View-Master kind of sucks, and a View-Master projector was always silly to me because it's like, well, don't you want to see View-Master isn't 3D like what the View-Master did? Because before the lighted View-Master, which I was fortunate enough to have, as I mentioned, from Eastman Kodak. Oh yeah, I was mentioning the other things I remember. The Sloth, Brady Bunch, Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls. Those were the types of things I would get. And then, of course, I would get packs that were more fun than that. But they came in a pack, and each pack usually had 3 reels. And now into the stereoscopic happening here. So you would have 7 places to advance the screen. And then inside the View-Master itself, there was a little hole near the top that you could see perpendicular to the reel. And there would be numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so you knew where you were in space here in the series of the story. So you would get a book with it, and the book would go in a lot more detail. Like there's this one book that I read, the Chiz, about this physics that I got her. I'm sure all of it's still relevant, but it's physics, so most of it is. It's just that we've advanced a lot since then. 1024, thank you, 1024. Holy cripes. Might go a little long because there's a lot of backstory to this one. So you get this booklet, and it would become a real event. Now, I didn't have brothers and sisters that could sit there and read me this booklet, so when I was younger, I pretty much just shoved it in my View-Master and read the condensed blurb on the little area that you would look through. So each number would have a tiny blurb, and then in the booklet, you would have maybe a paragraph or 2 that would talk about scene 1. If I look on scene 1 of Little Black Sambo, I see Black Mumbo and Little Black Sambo, and that's all it says. Now, if I go in the book, it's a whole paragraph about scene 1, and it's set up and everything else. So when I was a kid, I just read, the little blurbs, and then looked at the pictures and oohed and awed, and the background, the foreground, the wonderful sets that were built to do these. As I mentioned, Bugs Bunny, Donald Duck with Chip and Dale. Now that was a 3-reel, but each one of the 3 reels was a separate story. And Little Kittles, that was one that I absolutely flipped for, was Little Kittles, to not find out that they were dollies until like 3 years ago. Something like that. So when they got rid of the book, that's the event. I could go through these 7 slides in like zip, less than a minute. That's not really an event. It's nothing you're going to spend $5, $10 for, whatever it might cost today to produce these things. Maybe only $3, who knows? But still, you don't get a booklet with it, so it's not something that you're going to sit down and do with somebody, or in my case, sit down by yourself and do with somebody. And as I mentioned, there's 2 writers, one person that does a synopsis, and it doesn't always line up with what's going on in the booklet. And then when they brought out Talking View-Masters, which unfortunately I was not privy to until maybe in the past 10 years, Talking View-Masters, now you had another writer, because the writer would write the dialogue that's being said through the Talking View-Master like this. Steve, get Brian a Bigfoot. And, it sounds like a G.I. Joe, because all it is it's a plastic record made out of cheap plastic with a cheap plastic needle, I guess you could say, attached directly to a plastic speaker diaphragm. So that's all it is. It's a belt that's driving the wheel that's stuck to the back of this cardboard, and then the wheel is getting that has been grooved with sound. Has if you want to find out about how to make a record, listen to a Wiggly World as well, because maybe I talk about that. I'm not sure, but it vibrates the little plastic needle inside the View-Master, and then there wasn't even volume. Their volume would come out later, but it was honestly just one bar of plastic that had a needle on one end and bumped up against a speaker on the other end, and the speaker also made of plastic, so that vibrated from the needle vibrating through the grooves. But then, so you had another writer, and sometimes these would be, well produced, sometimes not, but definitely studio produced. So somebody had to write that dialogue or what was going to be said or played or whatever during that reel scene. Then you had the little blurb, your Twitter on the reel, and then you had the book. So that's fun. To me, that's fun. When I go and watch, an Incredible Hulk or Spider-Man or Spidey-Man and Captain American, when I watch those, Thor, Doctor Strange, Fantastic Four, Submariner, and then the DC heroes, a lot of moral heroes you wouldn't think had things released, but that's what was happening in the 70s, late 70s. So here's Little Black Sambo. This, of course, once again, I said it would be released back when it was the metal View-Master system. This was in a one-view sleeve with one reel and then the booklet. Oh, right, I didn't get into Little Black Sambo himself, 1520. Holy Christ. So why did I like Little Black Sambo? Once again, I was a kid. This is before I even went to school, and I used to love to go to Sambo's restaurant when we'd drive down to Florida or somewhere down south. Mostly Florida. I don't think we knew anyone down south. We just would go visit the South when we were getting to Florida and driving. So I think I only went there maybe twice or three times, but I really enjoyed it. And, because it hit it once on the way down, once on the way back. Hack 'em. Allergies, really bad. Plus, I was up for like 2.5 days recently. Up till 2 days ago. It's wonderful. Yesterday morning, actually. So, pardon me, here I go. Well, this is how it always is, actually. So we would go to this place called Sambo's, and on the walls they would have the drawings of this book. This book came out turn of the century, and when I say turn of the century, I always mean 20th century. So I think 1899, to be exact, I'm pretty sure is when this was written. This was written about Little Black Sambo, a boy that was from southern India, and he was blackish. He was dark. He was dark-skinned Indian. And it would be, and you're going to see that in this story, you're like, why are tigers involved with this? And he's in a jungle. This isn't a forest scene of what would be termed a pickaninny character. This doesn't look like an Indian kid. And why is someone from the South, a black family from the South, and that's the term I'll use because that's what he's called, Little Black Sambo. Listen to A Wiggly World for my ideas on race and how that is. There's the human race, and that's it. And melatonin in your skin are different shades doesn't really matter and doesn't indicate any type of social construct of race that we have invented. But Little Black Sambo, this is not what Sambo's restaurant looked like. It wasn't an Indian food restaurant. It was a diner, and it had the depictions that Little Black Sambo would take on during the early 20th century of the. Now, see, I guess it's still considered blaxploitation, but I reserve blaxploitation for the films of the 70s. This is black exploitation, or what people that couldn't pass as white, and some whites couldn't pass as white too. But if a black person could pass as white, they would get treated better. And if going back to the time of slavery, that's where this whole pickaninny idea came about, and the term pickaninny, because it was a slave that liked being a slave, basically liked their master, and the yes'em and all that business. And we would see this all, we would see, Jesus, I didn't even understand Al Jolson. I knew who he was. I knew that he sang Mammy. I knew that Bugs Bunny imitated Al Jolson. I didn't know he was, a Semite, which is of no consequence, but it's really strange how, I guess I knew he was a lighter-skinned guy under there, but I didn't really put it together. I didn't understand blackface very well. People really give it to Al Jolson, because that was a cartoon, Al Jolson, because that was his main shtick, was blackface. But most people like Fred Astaire, thinks he's a fantastic dancer. Of course, Gene Kelly, people like him more because of his trousers and his handsome good looks and everything else. But it's said about Fred Astaire that he never stopped dancing, and I always loved Fred Astaire. But Jesus Christ, Bing Crosby, Fred Astaire, go back and watch Holiday Inn, and you will not believe this. I've seen Fred Astaire in blackface before in another motion picture that I happen to really like, but it just has one number in blackface where he tap dances and stuff. And there's going to be big differences. I don't want to delve too deep in this, but I'm just trying to set up my social atmosphere. But if you want to just have your mouth on the floor, not necessarily because of the blackface. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it for you. But you're in for a surprise. It's a celebration of Abraham Lincoln, and Holiday Inn is, of course, an inn that's open on holidays. But Uncle Remus and everything else happens here, and I don't remember those parts from when I originally watched it, and it's considered a Christmas movie. Even though Christmas is only one of the holidays. The holiday that I'm talking about is Abraham Lincoln's birthday or death day or Abraham Lincoln Day or something, President's Day maybe. But if this was an actual celebration like it was portrayed on Holiday Inn, holy mackerel, people were fucking nuts. We already know they were nuts. We already know man's inhumanity to man. So, to me, as a kid, Black Sambo was as much of a hero as Spider-Man was, as the Hulk was, as Dondi. In fact, I liked him better than Dondi. Dondi's eyes were just two dots. Liked him better than Annie. Annie was blind. She didn't have any eyeballs, so Dondi and Annie get together, and then they'll have normal eyes. They're kids. But he was just as much a character as those people. It didn't smack of step and fetch it type of bullshit like that. And I certainly didn't understand the concept of pickaninny, and as I mentioned, not even a blackface. I would later learn of blackface being problematic. But Sambo's was an actual restaurant. It was a restaurant that was started, I believe, in the 50s. And I would go there, of course, in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. As I mentioned, I was 3 around that time. So I would just see this little kid, and, I didn't understand that, cartoons are drawn goofy. You know what I mean? They're drawn silly. So seeing a small child with very white lips, and that type of black exploitation file, it's defiling, in my opinion. It's degrading. The people behind it were problematic, not the people necessarily that read it. And even some of the people that drew this might have considered it just as innocent. This is very. It's a very gray area on some of this. On some of the stuff, it's a very gray area. as far as motive and as far as intent and other things. Like I can watch something like Scrub Me Mama with a Boogie Beat. I can't remember the exact name of that. I don't think it's called Lazy Town, but it might be, and that's where they went. Now, saying it's Lazy Town and it's just all people of darker skin tones is kind of, that's horrible. And the daughter that comes there is very light-skinned, and this is whole insults to people with that other self-identify as the same. I'm not even going to get to this story. 2432. I gotta leave. I'm going to read this. This is going to be the longest episode of Wiggly's Book Club because I think this part's important. The whole setup. I went to Little Black Sambo. Thought he was a comic book character. The end. I loved the story. Thought he was a brave boy. I could identify with him. It was funny. And then we'll go right into the story now. But basically, that's it. There wasn't any difference between looking at Little Black Sambo and looking at Charlie Brown. I didn't see that this was somebody mocking a culture or a ethnicity or whatever you want to call it. Because I don't know what to call it anymore. Ever since I'm try to watch my vernacular on things like race, it's hard for me to know what to call things that other people. I end up calling it what people can relate to, or, grew up with. But I would like to get to that day where that's not how you do it. And once again, listen to A Wiggly World for a little bit more. So here we go, Little Black Sambo. This is View-Master presents Little Black Sambo illustrated with 7 scenes in 3-dimensional full-color Kodachrome. And on the back, we have View-Master presenting the following fairy tales. Fairy tales. Little Red Riding Hood was FT1. I'm not going to... You can go FT dash number from here. FT1, Little Red Riding Hood. Hansel and Gretel, Jack and the Beanstalk, Snow White and the 7 Dwarves, Cinderella, Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, the 3 Little Pigs. Little Black Sambo was FT8 fairy tale, burp, by the way, and then the Ugly Duckling. Now, putting Little Black Sambo between 3 Little Pigs and the Ugly Duckling, now that's the first time I noticed that, and that's kind of a shitty place to put them. 7, 8, 9. So there were 9 fairy tales, hence the FT, I am assuming, at this time. Each fairy tale is illustrated with 7 full-color stereoscopic screens mounted on an interchangeable reel for viewing in a View-Master stereoscope. Copyright Sawyer's Inc., Portland, Oregon, printed in USA. And this chain of Sambo's restaurants, as I mentioned, they lasted well into the 70s. In fact, probably in the early 80s. And at one time, this is not an isolated joint. At one time, there were 12,000 of them, or 144,000. I'm getting. My memory's either going from 120 to 144, but somewhere around there. 100 and wait, am I moving too many zeros around? Maybe 1,200. Yeah, that might be 12. I meant 12, like 1,200, not 12,000. But then again, I don't know because I don't remember, and sleep and beer. So here we go with Little Black Sambo. Oh, by the way, so as I was mentioning, this was supposed to be an Indian boy. And he wore a turban and all this other stuff. Here, it's the typical Uncle Tom bullshit looking renderings. I mean, they're beautiful. But it's somewhat derogatory. It's the mammy shit and the pappy shit. And so let's just get into Little Black Sambo. But keep in mind that this was written as a story about a little Indian boy, a fellow from India, that was from the South and of a darker complexion, and that was his name. Much like you would give people a nickname now based on some physical attribute of themselves, that would be like Old Black Charlie. You know, let's say this guy's so black he's purple with even blacker freckles going on. You might call him Old Black Charlie. Like, he might call himself that because he's very black. Not a derogatory thing towards a race. So I'm not sure, I don't know the ins and outs of the purpose behind Little Black Sambo or what have you. I don't know if it was meant as an insult, or it probably was, because there was Black Mambo and Black Jumbo. So let's read scene 1. Little Black Sambo. Once upon a time, there was a little black boy, the little black boy, and his name was Little Black Sambo, and those are all capitalized. His father was called Black Jumbo, and his mother was called Black Mumbo. One day, Black Mumbo made him a beautiful little red coat and a pair of beautiful blue trousers. In scene 2, and Black Jumbo went to the bazaar and bought him a beautiful green umbrella and a lovely little pair of purple shoes with crimson soles and crimson linings. So he's decked to the nines here, Little Black Sambo. His mom makes him a coat and trousers, and his pop buys him a umbrella and shoes like that. And the umbrella motif and all these other motifs, as I mentioned, this whole story, and I don't know if there's even any stories beyond this, because I can't remember. I think this was the same fucking story I would read on the back of the placemats. Black Sambo put on his fine clothes and went for a walk in the jungle. In the jungle! Okay? You're trying to make it look like, Louisiana, and you got the jungle. Well, I guess you have, swamps and things like that. And you have, as you go down to Florida, you have your palm trees as you start heading down in that way. But at no point do I think it's a jungle. It's more of a forest. What's the difference? I don't know. You have a marsh and you have shit like that. Here's scene 3. And by, he met a tiger who said, "Little Black Sambo, I'm going to eat you up." "Oh, please, Mr. Tiger," said Little Black Sambo, "don't eat me up, and I'll give you my beautiful little red coat." So the tiger put on the red coat and went around saying, "Now I'm the grandest tiger in the jungle." And by, he met another tiger who wanted to eat him up. So Little Black Sambo parted with his blue trousers, and the second tiger went away saying, "Now I'm the grandest tiger in the jungle." Scene 4. And Little Black Sambo went on, and by, he met another tiger who wanted to eat him up. "Oh, please, Mr. Tiger, don't eat me up, and I'll give you my little purple shoes with crimson soles and crimson linings." But the tiger said, What use would your shoes be to me? I've got 4 feet and you've got only 2. You haven't enough shoes for me. "You can wear them on your ears," he replied. So the tiger put poor Black Sambo's beautiful shoes on his ears, and was left of the tigers, he said, Let's see, it's 4, and then it goes right to the end of 6 to 7. All right, it appears that I'm missing a page here. Yeah, I could see. Somebody must have cut out a valuable coupon. So it's missing one set of the fold-out. This isn't really a booklet. This one's a fold-out. Normally they're booklets, folded booklets. This one is a pull-out, and it appears that I'm missing the end of slide 4, and then slide 5, and then the beginning of slide 6. So fortunately, I know the story of Little Black Sambo, so I put it on his ears, and I'm sure he said, "Now I'm the grandest tiger in the jungle," and he pranced around. So what does Little Black Sambo have left that he's wearing? No, he has his umbrella. So by and by, I guess really, by and by, Little Black Sambo continues. I guess I could look at the reel. 5 says the tigers try to eat up each other. Ooh, that's getting ahead of itself. So at the end of 4, it must be that Sambo runs into another tiger and he wants to eat him up. And Little Black Sambo says, I'll give you my beautiful green umbrella? My beautiful green umbrella. And the tiger's like, well, what the fuck? How am I going to, what am I going to use with an umbrella? And Little Black Sambo says, well, you can hold it in your tail and then walk around like that, like the mummers or something. I don't know. And then, of course, he thinks he's the grandest in the jungle. So now Little Black Sambo doesn't have any of the stuff that his parents got for him or made for him. And, he's kind of bummed out. He's going to get in trouble. When he gets home, he's going to get a licking. So if I read this, pardon me, burp, a lot of burps today. Slide number 5 says, foot 8, fairy tale 8, tigers try to eat each other up. So the tigers all sort of bump into each other, I think, and they're all saying that they're the grandest tiger, of course, and now they're having an argument about who's the grandest tiger. And they sort of forget all about Little Black Sambo. Little Black Sambo's already, sitting around crying. Wow, then it goes right into the payoff in slide 6. So I have to just make up the whole rest. I should just tell you the whole rest of this before we get into that. So they start running around. They might chase Sambo for a little bit. I don't recall. But all I know is Sambo's out of the way. He's worried because these tigers are chasing each other around the tree. And they're ripping at each other, and they end up tearing their clothes off. And like Sambo's like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna go pick this stuff up because now I didn't lose shit. Now I'm good." He got all his clothes on, and in the meantime, the tigers are running around the tree faster and faster and faster until you couldn't see where one tiger ended and another tiger began. And okay, so I see where this picks back up, and they run around so fast. And they're yellowish, the tigers, they're yellowish, orange type of thing, but in this case they're supposed to be yellowish. And they run around so fast that they eventually melt into a giant ring of butter at the bottom of a tree. I think it was a palm tree. So the tigers melt into butter, and here's where it picks off. What's left of the tigers, he said, this must be Black Jumbo, because he comes to pick up, no. I can't remember. I think this is Black Jumbo comes, and he spots this with Little Black Sambo. I don't think Black Sambo picks up the butter himself. But it's a big fucking shitload of butter. It's 4 or 5 tigers running around. And he said, what lovely melted butter. I'll take that home to Black Mumbo. And then scene 7, we wrap it up. And this was one of my favorite parts of the comic strip. When Black Mumbo saw the black... This is normally how the reading goes. Remember, I'm dyslexic and I can't read. When Black Mumbo saw the melted butter, wasn't she pleased? Now, she said, I'll have pancakes for supper. She made a huge big plate of pancakes and fried them in melted butter, and they were just as yellow and brown as the little tigers. Black Mumbo ate 27 pancakes. Black Jumbo ate 55, but Little Black Sambo ate 169 pancakes because he was so hungry. The end. Indeed. I talked to my aunt about Little Black Sambo because, as I said, I mentioned it to a few people about what my next read on Wiggly's Book Club was, and I I wanted to wait until I had some setup, some sense of what Wiggly's Book Club would be. And, it's kind of free, and I read a lot of things that I hope that you don't have. Now, of course, I thought, well, no one's going to have Little Black Sambo because, they haven't made this for so long. And I remembered, oh yeah, the internet. How about that? You could probably go see it. Now, you might not be able to see the Soupy Sales books and the Sex to Sexty books and things like that. So I try to pick, or the Fonzie magazines. So I try to pick things that you're not going to run into in daily life. And I thought this would be one until I said it out loud, and now I realize that you could probably find the story very easily. But I wanted to, explore with you, discover it with you, my interaction with Little Black Sambo, and how, nothing of this screams black exploitation or black defaming or defiling or making someone less than human. In fact, there's absolutely nothing in here except for the name, and of course how these characters are drawn. But there's nothing in the story that would implicate it as being even a kid that any type of kid, any type of kid. If his name was just Little Sambo, that would be fine. In fact, I think they tried to change the name of Sambos to something else, but it was too late. It was far too late, because now we're coming out of the 60s. The civil rights movements were coming into the 70s, where, actually what happened is they tried to bring this shit northeast, and that wasn't flying with anybody. They didn't see the charm in it. I believe it started in California. I could be mistaken there. I know there's still a Little Black Sambos in California, but there they'll feature the artwork of both a little boy wearing a turban who's lighter skinned, and then the more racial type of drawing of Little Black Sambo. But I talked to my aunt, and now she's in her 50s. I think she just turned 60, actually. Well, I know she did, because she had her 60th birthday here in Sloppy Joe's. And she remembers. I said, how about, remember Little Black Sambo? Goes, I love the part where the tigers melt into butter. And that's what people take away from this. They take away the scene where the tigers melt into a pool of butter. Now, how the fuck do tigers melt into butter? Nobody knows. But yet that's the thing that people like about this. They don't think it. It's so weird when we think about it now, but when we were kids, for some reason we love that they melted into butter. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't tigers melt into butter and you could eat 100? And I have to get this exact number right, because that is the only reason that he ate 169 pancakes was because he was so hungry. Normally he stops at 130, 140, but here he was hungry from getting stressed out from losing all his clothes. 169 pancakes. God bless him. God bless America. Well, I hope that that was enjoyable for you. Next time we'll look at some fucking comic book or something. Actually, I have some good things planned in the queue ahead. Remember, this show is to examine what is lying around the Trapdoor Mansion library and bring some things to the listeners here that I think they would enjoy, because I enjoy them and I think they're rare. So we're going to go at least to 45. Thank you, 4235. Back to me in the studio. We hope you've enjoyed tonight's reading. To own your own View-Master Reel of Little Black Sambo, you can check eBay or just Google it, I would think. The management would also like to apologize. Today's super secret surprise guest, Chevy Chase, cannot be on the program because he's Chevy Chase and you're not. For Wiggly and the entire crew at Wiggly's Book Club, I'm Wiggly. And remember, kids, RIP. Reading is fundamental.